Alright everybody, good morning. So the first thing we're going to do today for our small groups in our video sessions is we're going to talk about the math notebook things that you guys put in your notebooks this week while you're working in your independent group workstations, while I was working with the other group working on the SRA math concepts. So this week we're starting something new and we're making our math notebooks. And in your math notebooks our first page was devoted to this, and it's all about rounding numbers. And if you see in your math notebook, you'll see that there's a couple special numbers with a decimal point and letters that refer to what's called a math standard. So this says rounding numbers 3.nbt.1. And what that means, guys, is that for everything that you learn in math nowadays, for our curriculum, which is what the teachers teach you guys, is all based on what's called a standard, or it's kind of like a guideline for the lesson. Like, what are you going to be able to do when you're done learning the lesson or you're done doing the lesson? So it's all about statements that say I can. So I can do this because I've just learned this. So today our first thing that we put in was all about rounding numbers. And it says 3.nbt.1, rounding numbers. I can round whole numbers to the nearest 10 or 100. And that's what we've been working on a little bit. And we put our little people here, and it talks about rounding numbers. We have the number 378, and they rounded up to 380 because the 8 is higher than 5. 5 or above, we give the number a shove. Here it has 639. We want to round to the nearest 100. The 3 is the number we look at because it's in the tens place. The 6 is in the hundreds. And it's below 5, so we stay low. It's all about place value, guys. Up here we have 327. We want to change the tenths place. So we look at the ones place, which is a 7. 5 or above, we give it a shove. 330. Same thing here. They want the tens place rounded. So we have the 4s in the tens place, but we have to look at the ones. 3 is below 5, so we round down, so it's 540. To the nearest 100, here's 4. We have to look at the tens place. It's all about place value. 5 or above, we give it a shove. So we go to 500. 5 is a strong number. 4 here, to round to the nearest 100, we have to look at the tens place. 4 is a weaker number than 5, so we round down. It's 700. So that's the first standard you guys worked on for this week. The next standard that you guys worked on for this week was adding and subtracting. Okay? And some of you haven't finished doing this in your math notebooks, but it's adding and subtracting 3.nbt.2. It's another standard. It's completely different than the other one. The other one was nbt.1. This is nbt.2. Adding and subtracting. Once again, key words. I can. I can fluently, which means with a good amount of time or very quickly, just looking at what I'm doing, I can sit there and see here's a problem and I can finish it right off the bat. I can see I'm adding here. I can see I'm subtracting here. I can go ahead and just do all of the key things that I need to do in a nice amount of time. So fluently, without many mistakes or whatnot, I can work from one problem to the other. So I can fluently add and subtract within 1,000. Yes, 1,000. That's 4 place values. Tens, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. Okay? So when we were doing this, you guys were cutting out your things. It says, when adding or subtracting multi-digit numbers, use a grid to make sure that your numbers are lined up properly and to help with regrouping. Each problem here that you guys cut out has what's called a grid. And the grid is just like graph paper, where you can put the numbers in each box, which helps you line up. Because that's so important when you're adding or subtracting numbers, that you make sure that everything is lined up in the correct place value. Here's the ones place, here's the tens place, here's the hundreds place. You have to make sure that you're using your correct place value placement so that you can add or subtract the correct way. When we add, we just kind of go down. We always start from the right because we want to be right, and then we work our way left. Adding, depending on what our number is, like 9 plus 5 here is 14, but 14 is a 2-digit number. which it has 4 in the ones column, but it has a 10 because it's 14. Just like when we do place value facts for SRA math concepts, the place value fact for 14 would be 10 plus 4 equals 14. Here's my 4 from 14, but there's my 10 because that's the tens column. Ones, tens, hundreds. So then you just keep working forward. 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So we put our 0 here and we carry the 1 there because at that point we're in the tens column. The extra 1 is actually 100, and this is the hundreds column. 1 plus 5 plus 7 is 8. It's the same thing for finding the difference or the sum, and these are real nice because they tell you different words than, hey, go ahead and add. You all know that. Or go ahead and subtract. They give us keywords like sum. When you hear find the sum of something, you're really talking about adding. When you hear find the difference of something, you're really talking about subtracting. So now that we have that done, the next thing that we want to look at is using the information provided to answer part A and B for the question. Yes, this is our fabulous PARCC question for the day. It's a two-part question. There's a part A and a part B. You guys all have these in your math packets. So let's look through and remember all of the fabulous things that we're working on when we're doing PARCC. And one of the first keys that we need to do is to remember that when we're working on these questions is that we need to make sure that we read the question thoroughly and we remember what's there to help us answer the problem. You guys are going to be taking the paper pencil test, so just like the paper pencil test, here's your paper, here's your pencil. This is your area to work. This is a little different than the other ones that we've done lately, so please follow along. It says Diane's family sells honey from beehives. They collected 3,311, actually let me say that again, 3,311 ounces of honey from the beehives this season. They will use the honey to completely fill 4-ounce jars or 6-ounce jars. Diane's family will sell 4-ounce jars for $5 each, or 6-ounce jars for $8 each. Diane says if they use only 4-ounce jars, they could make 4,140 because 3,311 divided by 4 equals 827 with a remainder of 3. That rounds up to 828, and 828 multiplied by $5 is 4,140. Explain the error that Diane made when finding the amount of money his family could make if they only use 4-ounce jars. So this question is asking us to focus on 4-ounce jars. And it's asking us to find out the money. So if we look here, Diane's family will sell 4-ounce jars for $5 each. So I'm just going to write up here $5. So I'm aware of how much money I'm trying to make. So it says here that Diane says if they use only 4-ounce jars, they could make 4,140 because 3,311 divided by 4 is 827, remainder 3. That rounds up to 828. Well, it's kind of fun that we're doing this one because earlier this week, just like we were talking about earlier in the video, we talked about rounding numbers as one of our standards for 3.nbt.1. So let's figure this out. So he's saying the following. Diane is saying that they can make a certain amount of money, but we're really not worried about the money. We're really worried about his math right here. So what we got here is 3,311, and he's going to divide it by 4. And we're going to see what we can equal here. Okay? So we can either write it this way, or you can write it this way. And the fabulous thing about this is that since we started to use as an accommodation, you guys can use your calculators. This is a fabulous problem to use a calculator on. So what you're going to do here is remember that when you're doing this, that you can only use a 4-function calculator. You open it up, we have solar powered calculators here, and the first thing that I want to do is check his math. I have the number 4 here and I want to divide it into 3,311. It's a very big number. Now because you have a calculator, I'm just going to say let's go ahead and divide it. But we need to show our work here because it says to enter an explanation in the space provided. Okay? So that being said, you want to be able to take 3,311. That's this same number, and you want to divide that by this number, which is 4. So this is your dividend, and this is your divisor, and this is your answer. And your answer here turns out to be actually what he said. So here's the question though. He has 3 left over, and we want to see if we're going to round up to 828. And then he multiplied by 5. Well, because we have the number here that says 827 and 75 hundredths, we're going to look at this number to see if we round up. Remember from our learning earlier that if the number is 7 or 5 or above, we give the number a shove. So that because this number is 7, that means that I can shove this number up. That gives me 828. So far, we're good. But then he says he's going to make $4,140 off of this. So let's check that math, which means 4-ounce jars are selling for $5. 828 times 5. Okay. That's right. That's how much they could make. So all of this math looks like it works, but it says they collected 3,311 ounces of honey from the beehives this season. They will use the honey to completely fill 4-ounce jars or 6-ounce jars. But here, let's look at this. If they decide to do 4-ounce jars, can you have a remainder? Think about that. If I have one jar here, let's say this is jar 827, and I fill this up, I have a little bit left. So I'm filling my jar right here up, and it only fills up this much. That means that this jar doesn't fill up all the way. So that means that I can't really round up to 828. Even though his math is really, really good, when we're dealing with the fact that you want to fill each jar with 4 ounces, there's not enough ounces to fill that last jar with 4 ounces. So, and if I'm going to explain it, I have to write a sentence. He cannot round up a jar because they all have to have 4 ounces to sell for $5 each. Okay? So now let's take a look at Part B. Now it says, for Part B, it says, explain how to determine the money Giant's family could make if they use only 6-ounce jars. Include the total amount of money and the total number of 6-ounce jars in your explanation. Okay? So back here, we remember that he was able to put 4 ounces into 3,311 ounces, a total perfect amount of time, 827 times, with some left over. He didn't have enough left over to fill another jar, so he can't sell 828. So we're going to do the same concept except with the number 6. Okay? We know that they have 3,311 ounces, and we know we're looking at 6-ounce jars this time. So we're going to do the same thing. Remember, when you want to do a new problem in your calculator, you have to hit the on C button to clear everything out. 3,311 in my calculator divided by the button here, 6 equals, and look at, I have a decimal here. And the decimal is like me saying I have a remainder. I can't round up, because if I'm rounding up, that means I don't have a whole number amount of 6 ounces. So because I have a decimal here, I don't need to put the 83333 because I can't fill enough in a jar for that. So we can only really we can sell $551. Okay? It wants us to explain how to determine the money. So now we need to take this 551 jars that we can actually fill. And now we go back here and we look, how much are they selling the 6-ounce jars for? $8. So now I can take my 551 in my calculator. I'm going to hit my on C button again, 551, and I'm going to multiply it by $8. This means that my family, or Giant's family, can make $4,408 off of 6-ounce jars. They can actually make more selling the 4-ounce jars, which I would never thought. But now I'm going to explain. So I would just explain what my problems say. Giant's family can fill 551 jars with 6 ounces of honey in each and sell for $8 each, which means they can make $4,408. This is different than your normal math that we've done. You have to show your work, which this would work, but then you have to write a sentence explaining your work. So that's it for our lesson today. We should be at this point being ready to switch over and work on things. If you haven't finished putting together your workbook, and we even have new notebooks now, your actual notebooks, that you can take the ones that you made on the other pages and into the real notebooks as well. Alright? Thanks, guys.